Luffy and Loki seem immune to Domi Reversi, while Chopper seems to be one of its counters. As the fires rage on, did Biblo save the books of Ohara? And we just might be at the turning point of this arc, as the Great One seems to be personally gracing us on Elbaf. Getting right into it, the chapter opens up with Luffy rushing Brook and Usopp over to Sanji's group, stating that he got them out of danger because Loki is a wild card. Funny who that is coming from though, and this is a sentiment that Sanji agrees with. While Frankie offers backup, Luffy informs them that for the time being it's better off if they stay put, but that he will count on them if needed. I like this because it really shows us more of the confidence that the Straw Hats now have as a Yonko crew. And at the end of the chapter, well, we just might be setting up the very scenario that Luffy was describing, where in which him and Loki just might need that additional assistance from some of the crew. We then cut over to Loki and Emu, who are in pitched combat. Loki is firing Thorheim, while Emu is firing words from their mouth. Here we learn some rumors that spread during Loki's time on the seas. He remained fairly hidden by sticking within foggy regions that seem to like to spawn around him and Harald. And with this, his sole target was government ships. We also learn that during this time, some certain credible rumors started to stir. Rumors that described a giant flying beast that defied imagination. Emu comments that after seeing Nidhogg here on Elbaf, the truth of these rumors is easy to understand. I suspect they may now know who it was that took out Harald, despite the combination of his innate raw power and the power granted by Emu via the Covenant Seal. Luffy rushes in for an attack of his own, but before he gets a chance, Emu ejects themselves from Gunko's body, just like what they did against Rocks in God Valley, and then begins to chant the setup for using Domi Reversi. And something I noticed is there seems to be like levels in which Emu can trigger this ability. So in chapter 1150, when Emu uses it on Brogy, they do so while still in Gunko's body, and the Abyss Circle like appears on the ground. Here in this chapter, and during the God Valley flashback, Emu triggers it more directly by running the target through with their tendrils. Now for Luffy and Loki, these tendrils actually pass through the circle, whereas when it happened to Rocks, I don't believe there was a circle at all. So I am wondering if these are stages in which Emu can infuse more or less power into the Domi Reversi technique, probably based on the target and the scenario they are in. However, unlike the scenario with Rocks and Brogy, the ability fails to work on both Luffy and Loki. They just they look forward, they're like, what are we doing? This doesn't even hurt. Emu then comments that this is as expected, these two truly are ... We don't get the rest of that thought. So despite this attempt, Emu was somewhat aware going in that it was not going to work. Even with this, I do still think it was a good idea that Emu tried, and in terms of being a fan and reading the story, I'm happy that we got to see this attempt and learn that for some reason, it isn't working. I am curious why that's the case though. Is it because of Nika and Nidhogg specifically? Or is it more closely tied to Devil Fruits themselves? In my theory on why Chopper can counter Domi Reversi, one of the things I brought up is the chance that Emu's powers are either directly from a Devil Fruit, or if they're not, that they're based on the same type of changes Devil Fruits make to an individual's lineage factor. So it is possible that Domi Reversi is ineffective against Devil Fruit users in general because that aspect of the lineage factor has already been changed, and so maybe it can't be changed again, or perhaps Domi Reversi only works under specific conditions, and a devil fruit user is no longer under those conditions because they've been altered by the fruit. Just something to think about. Luffy then lands a booming Dawn Gatling that breaks Emu apart, while Loki shifts back into his normal form, grabs Ragnir, and lands a Niflheim, freezing Emu and Gunko in a block of ice. Clearly, Oda still wants to tease us. He intends on keeping Loki's hybrid form hidden, but I'm hoping we get to see it by the end of this arc. And while these attacks appear to be effective in taking down Emu, we can be certain that the best they will do is simply slow them down. Loki has two interesting lines in this section. One, where he comments on Gunkumu being too puny to fight in his dragon form, which is funny. That was mostly a comedic line for me, I liked it. But the second one he says, he comments on how he was way too big for way too long. This is a line I find more interesting, and I would say maybe we can glean that, like Luffy's Gear Fifth, it's possible that it is taxing for Loki to be in his full dragon form to a greater extent than it would be for a typical zone user to be in their full forms. Again, that would make Luffy and Loki similar. But the line way too big is also very intriguing to me, because it kind of seems to imply that Loki might have the ability to alter the size of his dragon form, maybe even at will. For the time being though, this fight is at a standstill, and so we cut away to other parts of Elbaf, starting with the fishing village. You get a fire. You get a fire. We all get fires. In this section of the chapter, we see that while Loki was very effective in taking out the nightmare monsters, he was equally as effective in setting fires everywhere he did so, all over the island. This leads us into a montage where we see everyone pitching in to assist. We have giants joining the fireman squad. We have Nami and Zeus joining the fireman squad. We have Jinbei, the leader of the fireman squad, all putting out the fires. And I gotta say, Jinbei is one of my favorite Straw Hats, so it makes me a little bit sad to see how he's been done after joining the Straw Hats. Narratively, at this point, I think Jinbei's performance, it's gonna slot into whatever crew members he's with. So if he's with the Monster Trio, I think he's gonna look stronger. We're gonna get his true combat prowess that we know he had as a warlord. But if he's with the weakling trio, or the weaker members of the Straw Hats, we're going to see what happened earlier in this arc, where he just gets done dirty. But it is what it is. Our fireman leader is still putting out fires. Lilith comments that even the ODCs have limits on what they can do. So I'm guessing these limits come in either the form of a max amount of energy that can be drained and converted per use, or that they might have a cooldown time during which they cannot be used at all. And I think this is cool. This is good if they end up becoming a permanent upgrade for Frankie, because it imposes a restriction on their use, but it also creates a chance for Frankie to improve them and possibly surpass Vegapunk. We also get some dialogue from the Giants here commenting that while they were wrong about Loki killing Harald, and that they were probably wrong about Loki in most aspects, that he is in still some ways a menace. I really think overall, though, this is going to shift Elbaf's view over to Loki's side, which really does make me excited for the island's future and, the pairing he might get with Hiruden. We then jump to West Village, where we pretty much see the resolution of Domi Reversi. Zoro's group comments that when dealing lethal damage, if the target flips back to white, then Domi Reversi is undone. But if they start to regenerate, the damage was not enough to fully undo the transformation. For that method of dealing with the technique, things seem pretty straightforward and something that other individuals are going to be able to follow. But then we get to Chopper, who has confirmed that while the mechanism is unknown, he is able to undo he is able to undo Domi Reversi through simple touch. The primary camp on this, from what I've seen, is that Chopper may have the Forest God fruit. My theory is that it pertains to the Rumble Balls and the wavelength changes that they make to Chopper, and the possibility that those same wavelengths are interacting with Domi Reversi. Zoro pitches a third route in that it may just be because he is a great doctor, to which Chopper gets embarrassed. What I want to find out next, if we just don't outright get the full answer, is whether or not Chopper retains the ability to nullify Domi Reversi once his monster point form goes away. If he does not retain it, then I will be even more inclined to say it's with the Rumble Ball. If he does retain it, then I will be more inclined to say it's either him directly, like Zoro mentioned, or his fruit, as in the Forest God route. And if you like this video so far, and you want to see more from me, please like and subscribe. I really greatly would appreciate it. Next, we have Robin and Saul making their way to the Owl Library, where they stumble into a peculiar scene. The library is clearly burned, yet there is not a single sign of the books. They surmise that there should at least be fragments left behind, and yet there's nothing. They also note that Biblo is not present in any way. This leads to the conclusion that somehow Biblo may have saved the books. But how did he do this? Let us recall what Lilith hypothesized about Biblo's devil fruit. Her idea was that it can gigantify objects, and that this is what allowed giants to read human-sized books. But we don't know for sure if the fruit can't go the other direction as well. In short, I'm thinking it is likely that Biblo shrunk all the books down to a point in which they could transport them or store them in some way before escaping from the library fire with the books in tow. We also do not know where Biblo took them. With this, we have also not seen the Heaven Realm yet. So what I'm thinking is that Biblo shrunk the books, stored them in a pouch of some kind or something, and has flown up to the Heaven Realm, and that this will serve as the impetus for us visiting there by the end of the arc. And then the chapter ends with Killingham questioning what happened to the Great One. We have Sommers finally starting to regenerate, so these two are likely going to be getting back up in some way. And while Luffy and Loki are recovering, Emu disappears from the ice block. Gone. And from Gunko's body, returning fully to the Holy Land. Once there, they state to the elders that the Holy Land will be without Mu for a short while. So it's starting to look like Emu will maybe ask Sommers to summon them directly so that they can make a personal appearance on the island, gracing us with their presence. And here, I think we can be certain that the climax of Elbaf is coming, with a direct confrontation between Emu, Luffy, and Loki, a potential power-up for Sommers and Killingham, maybe even leading to 1v1 fights with Zoro and Sanji, and the shot at a new world team-up between the remaining Straw Hats, who might end up assisting in the fight against Emu, much like Frankie hinted at. So yeah, I certainly think we're ramping up towards the end of the Elbaf arc here. What did you think of this chapter? Did I miss anything? Is there anything you'd like to talk more about? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And with that, I would like each and every one of you to have an excellent rest of your day.